Hello everyone, and welcome back to another R tutorial video. And in this video, we're going to wrap up using our ggplot function to generate a plot that has two histograms on it. And if you remember, this is sort of the code we had when we left off previously to make this graph over here. If you don't have this code in front of you and you're trying to follow along, I would encourage you to pause the video and just quickly catch up. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of use a trick in ggplot to give ourselves something that acts like a legend, well it is a legend, that we can then work with and modify. And in order to do that, we're actually going to do something that I've sort of argued against in previous videos. And that is that we're going to move this fill here, even though it's a static value, right? It's not driven from data. We're actually going to move it inside of this aesthetic function. And we're going to do the same thing with blue here. And the reason why we're going to do this is going to become apparent in just a second. But what this is doing sort of under the hood is this is creating a new column in our data frame. We can't see it, we can't access it, but it's creating a new column in the data frame that has all reds and all blues. So it's sort of internally adjusting the data to fit the fact that we've told it that we want fill to be driven by data. So if we run this, and then we run again down here, you'll see that what we've done is we've actually created a legend, similar to what we've seen before. Granted, the title and the labels aren't particularly useful. We now have something that we can work with. So the way that we're going to go about adjusting this is with a scale function. So in case you don't remember or you didn't watch my previous videos, when we deal with scale, what scale's doing is scale is telling the ggplot how to interface the parameters like fill, color, shape, and size, how to interface those with the plot. So if we said, for example, in the previous video that we wanted to have color be driven by species, we would then use scale to say what colors do we want to use. And we can actually hijack that, in this case, to alter the legend. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a scale. In specific, we're going to use scale, and then we're going to use the fill scale because we're dealing with a fill parameter here. And then we're going to use a manual so that we can go in and actually set things up ourselves. So manual. Now this is going to take a little bit of explaining, so hopefully you can kind of follow along and understand, and if you feel confused, I encourage you to go back and rewatch the parts you're confused about. But there's really three parameters that we're going to deal with that will directly translate into this over here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up a name, and this is going to change the name of the legend in this case, and we're going to name it species. So if we can't run this yet because it will actually crash, and the reason that it would crash if we ran it right now is that at a minimum the scale needs what are called values. And you can think of values as the way of mapping the parameter here, or the value in the parameter, to something we can actually put in the legend here. And so what I would highly recommend doing anytime you do this, just to keep yourself sane and keep things straight, is to take a little bit of extra keystrokes and actually put in what we're talking about. And this will make sense in just a second. So we have two values we need to worry about. We have to worry about the red value up here, and we have to worry about the blue value down here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do the red to specify that we're talking about the red value. We're going to put equals, and this is where we specify what we actually want it to look like. So we could do red equals green, and it would make the red entry down here be the green color. Now we obviously don't want to do that. We want to use red equals red, and we want to use blue equals blue. Sorry, that has to be in quotes. Blue equals blue. So this may seem redundant to have red equals red, But the reason that I am saying we do this is because it prevents us from making mistakes in terms of keeping things in the right order, and it just makes the code more readable. Because we know that we're talking about the red layer, and we want the color to be red, and we know that we're talking about the blue layer, and we want the blue layer to be blue. So the last thing that we want to add is we want to add the labels. And what labels are is these are the actual text that go next to the values. So this is where it says blue and red, and we can change that. And we're going to change that again. I encourage you to always specify what layer you're talking about. So we're talking about the red layer, and we want that to be labeled setosa. And we want the blue layer to be labeled virginica. Right, so now if we run this, and we go down here, and we run it again so we can look at our final product here, you can see that we've actually managed to do exactly what we wanted to do. We now have a legend here that says species, and the colors are properly coordinated and labeled. Now we could very easily also put in a call to theme, and we could do legend dot position and bottom. And then if we run this whole thing here, and we run it again, you'll see that we've put the legend on the bottom. So this is a good starting point of how we can put multiple different figures on the same graph. Now what I want to do is I actually want to go through and I want to do the same thing in base R. But we're actually going to stop the video here because I know that was a lot. I encourage you to pause the video, go back, rewatch anything you're confused about. And actually, before we leave, I just want to show you the reason why I encourage you to do red equals red here. And that's because we could change this and we could say red equals yellow. And if we run this, I'm actually going to do that. If we run this, you'll see that we've actually changed setosa to yellow. But because we specified red equals yellow, we can make this anything we want, and we never have to worry about it being put in the wrong place or attaching to the wrong data set. I'm going to change this back to red, though. And again, so in this case, you can think of this up here, this fill equals red. You can think of this red as almost like a label, so that when we use the scale, we know what we're talking about, red versus blue. And it's just convenient here that we keep the colors the same. So again, if you have any questions, I encourage you to pause the video, go back, rewatch the parts you're confused about, and as always, please reach out. Thank you.